I apologize in advance for this being such a long video. A lot of folks had requested more detail and information about how I do certain things. With that said, enjoy the video, share it with your friends, and please give it a thumbs up. Welcome back to the Kentucky Hot Wheels video series. For our next custom, we'll be transforming this Matchbox Jeep Gladiator into an off-road beauty. Got sidetracked with the previous custom that I was working on, so I decided to start a new custom. I've already done a couple other Gladiators, but this will be the first Matchbox. Before we get started, here's a short video of the current Gladiators that we've added to the collection. The green light, hitch and toe is probably my favorite. It has great detail. You've watched me do this many times before. I'm using a 9/64 drill bit to remove the head of the pillar. Be sure to drill slowly to keep the bit centered. Be careful not to let the bit drift into the plastic chassis. With the body removed, I'll let it soak in some very cold citrus stripper for a day or so. This isn't the most potent stripper, and sometimes, the paint on these cars can be difficult to remove. After sitting in the stripper for 3 days, it was time to see the results. I was pleasantly surprised that the paint stripper did a very good job removing the paint. Now, it just needs a good wash. Now we have a nice blank canvas to work with. With the chassis prepped, I'll prepare the pillars to be drilled for the self-tapping screws. It's much easier to start with a flat surface. I'll use a punch to indent the center of the pillar. I'll also take this opportunity to remove any flashing around the chassis.
Not that interesting.
Michael Kern went to Williams. Check out the masthead.
Me, she read the Herald 3 hours ago and spent the past 2.5 getting reamed by the president.
I'll use a center punch to mark drill spots on the headlights and the pillars. For the LEDs that I'll be using for headlights, I'll use a 3/32 bit. For the chassis pillars, I'll be using a 1/16 bit for the self-tapping screws.
Frank, if you can't control this.
Don't take well.
These are the LEDs that I'll be using for the headlights. As you can see, they're pretty small. Again, I'll drill a 3/32 hole to mount the LEDs. Here's a size comparison between a penny and the LEDs. Here, I'm drilling the holes for the headlight LEDs. I'm so sorry that you get a better view of the power switch to my drill press than the actual drilling process. Whether you're using a drill press or a hand drill, just be sure to take your time. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but get it as close as you can. And now, I'll drill the pillars for the self-tapping screws. I'll use a 1/16 bit for this. Drill as close to the center as you can. Again, sorry for the crappy view. We appreciate you taking the time to check out our videos. If you haven't subscribed yet, please take a moment to do so. If you're enjoying this video, please take a moment to give it a thumbs up. We'd certainly appreciate it, and it's the only way to ensure future videos. If you'd like to take it one step further and become a patron, we'd appreciate that as well. For links to all of our social media, please visit KentuckyHotWheels.com or HouseOfBoyd.com. And now for the front pillar. The bit is so small, sometimes you actually have better control with a hand drill. I'll be using these wheels that came on this model. I'll probably paint them, but I also want to give the Gladiator just a little lift. I'll start by removing these wheels. I was having a hard time deciding on a color for this project. I had been leaning towards a satin tan or green, but when I saw this Rust-Oleum orange, I knew it was the one. A rattle can paint job will be just fine for this project. I'll give everything a total of 3 coats, allowing a drying time of 15 or 20 minutes in between coats. Sometimes, you can get great results if you take your time and allow the paint to cure between coats. I'll tape off the interior since I want to keep it black. So far, I'm very pleased with the results. I'll let it cure for 24 hours before touching it. I think this color was a good choice for this custom.
But it still would have been a no.
I'll be using a 1/16 bit to drill holes for the new axles. Again, these new axles will allow me to lift the truck just a tad. It's important to keep the drill bit perpendicular to the chassis to ensure a straight hole. No need to drill fast into this plastic. Go slow and take your time. And now for the back axle. I wonder what Derek from Vice Grip Garage is doing today. Now it's time to cut the tubes for the new axles. I'll be using this 1/16 by .014 copper tubing. It's available online and at most hobby stores. You'll want to use a knife or sharp object to score the tubing. If you use side cutters or wire cutters, it'll crimp the end of the tubes because it's so thin and small. I'll cut these just a little long, then sand the ends flush once they're mounted. I use super glue to secure the new axle in place.
And I remember not fully comprehending the meaning of death yet. And I asked him how he died, and he told me. And I remember feeling so sad, so angry.
Once the glue is cured, I'll use one of these diamond bits to grind the end of the axles and make them flush with the chassis.
He's being commissioned.
I also want to take this opportunity to remove the running boards from the side of the chassis. I'll use my X-Acto knife to do this by making multiple passes along the cut line. Once I have decent score lines, I'll use some needle nose pliers to remove the running board. Once they've been removed, I'll use my X-Acto knife and a file to clean up the edges. Once I'm happy with the chassis, I'll give it a couple coats of satin black and let it sit overnight. Once the paint on the chassis has cured, I'll test fit everything together and install the wheels. Since this custom is fixed in place, there's no need for it to be able to roll. I'll glue the wheel shafts into the new axles. I'll leave enough to be able to adjust if necessary. So far, I'm very happy with the results. Next, I'll mask off areas of the body that need additional paint, and I'll start adding some detail. I'm going to give this Insta360 Go 2 camera a quick try while I explain what I'm doing here. This is gaffer's tape. It's readily available at most big box stores and the texture is perfect for convertible tops, bed covers, etc. I've used it many times before with other customs. Here, I may use it as a partial soft top or sun top on the Gladiator. With some simple folds and super glue, it should look pretty good. I'll super glue the first fold, then clamp it until the glue is cured. Now it's finally time to start adding some detail to the body. I'll do one section at a time. It takes a little patience, but it's worth taping off one section at a time, paint it, let it cure, then move on to the next section. Here, I'll paint the cowl area of the body. This blue painter's tape does a pretty good job masking off areas that I don't want to paint. It's not perfect, but it's cheap and can be found at most big box stores. Again, I'll use some Rust-Oleum rattle can paint for all of the satin black areas. Now, I'll tape off other areas that need to be painted. Remember, one section at a time, you can't be in a rush. After a good coat of paint, I'll let it sit for 20 minutes or so, then unmask it. It's not uncommon to find areas that didn't get the best coverage, but it's nothing that can't be touched up later. As you can see, I have a little touch-up to do. No big deal.
I know what can be accomplished in 100 days.
Now, I'll do a little touch-up. I'll use some acrylic paint for this. Again, these are readily available at most big box stores. I purchased these at our local Hobby Lobby.
Name it, Frank. You seem far too relaxed. No. You should be. They'll be in touch.
I'll loosely connect the body to the chassis to see how everything is fitting together. So far, I'm very pleased with the look and how everything is coming together. Next, I'll secure the foldable soft top to the body. It's time to install the LEDs for the headlights. I'll leave a link in the description in case you want to purchase these. They'll be secured with some super glue, but first, I'll have to trim a little from the standoffs in the front. I'll also include a link for the batteries and the battery holders that I use. This is the section that I'll have to trim just a bit. I'll use my Dremel and a burr bit to remove the plastic from the front standoffs. Just enough so it doesn't interfere with the wires to the LED. Now I'll secure the LEDs with some super glue, then sit it aside to cure. I'll do the other side and sit it aside for a few hours. While I wait for the super glue to cure, I'll paint the underneath of the fender wells and any other part of the chassis that got some orange overspray. I'm still trying to decide if I want to add a bed liner or not. Again, if you're enjoying this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, we'd certainly appreciate it. And please consider subscribing to our channel, it's the only way to ensure future videos.
He works for me.
I'll give the headlights a quick test before I start assembling everything. The wires to the LEDs are very thin and easy to break. Now I have to figure out the best way to snake the wiring through the chassis and display. I'll have to trim the chassis just a bit more. I'll use one of these diamond bits to remove a small portion of the chassis. Just enough to let the LED wires to pass through. Now it's time to assemble the chassis to the body. I was going to use the silver self-tapping screws, but opted to use the black ones instead. Everything is fitting together perfectly. I'll use some various tools at hand to begin detailing the body. I'll add fog lights, tail lights, mirrors, etc. I try to keep this as neat as possible, but it's never perfect. Even a toothpick will come in handy from time to time. Adding some fog lights. And now, the side mirrors. I've decided to go ahead and paint the bed to indicate a bed liner.
Is the McMansion in Sarasota that starts falling apart after 10 years.
Here, you can compare the difference between the stock Matchbox Gladiator and the custom. I'm really pleased with the direction it's going. I'll start working on the display boxes. I'll do this one just a bit differently than I did the last one. I want to be able to take it completely apart in the future if I need to. I'm going to use a small screw and nut to secure the bottom of the display to the top of the box stand. Don't know if this was a good idea or not, but I'm always looking for better ways to do things and share them with you. As you can see, the acrylic cracks very easily, even if you drill slowly. Nothing that a little super glue can't handle later. I'll also drill the holes for the wires to run through. I've already added some super glue and backyard dirt along the crack of the display. Now, I'll scuff it up a bit to give the white glue something to bond to. Now I'll tape the base of the display to a piece of glass. It makes it easier to maneuver as I'm working out the details. I've found that the green or blue painter's tape works the best for this. I'll cover the hole for the wiring with a little piece of tape to keep any debris from falling inside. After the glue cures, I'll drill through it again. I'll use this piece of sandstone as part of the landscape. The gladiator will be positioned to make it look like it's doing a little rock climbing. I'll secure it with some white glue. Now I'll give the entire display base a good coat of white glue, and then I'll begin to apply the dirt base. The dirt that I'm using is backyard dirt that has been sifted and then sifted again. Sometimes, I'll add a little gray or tan grout to the dirt. After the dirt is applied, I'll give everything a spritz of isopropyl alcohol. This will allow my water and glue mixture to penetrate the surface of the dirt. The water and glue mixture that I'm using consists of 1 part white glue and 3 parts water with just a drop of dishwashing liquid. And now, I'll add more dirt to help soak up the dirt mixture. Now it's time to be a little attentive and a little patient. I'll let everything sit for about 45 minutes to an hour and then remove the tape. It's important to remove the tape before the glue cures. After the tape has been removed, I'll let it sit for about 24 hours before adding anything else. I'll begin adding more detail to the body soon, so I'll take this opportunity to mask off an area for the windshield wipers. I'll make up a mixture of dark brown paint and water to create a wash. This will be the first layer of detail to the body. I just needed to fill in body lines or anywhere else road grime and mud might find its place. You can apply this mixture as many times as you want for the desired look. It dries fairly quickly, so it doesn't take long to build up layers. For now, I'll keep this layer a little light. While that's drying, I'll gather some backyard dirt to replenish my supply. Unfortunately, it's rained for the past few days, so finding any dry dirt is pretty much impossible. Yeah, the dirt is too wet. I'll let it sit in the garage overnight to dry out. With the wash now dry, I'll add some pastel chalk dust to simulate road grime and dirt. I may have to repeat this process a couple of times to obtain the best result. You can mix and match as many colors as you want. Once the first layer of road grime and dirt is applied, I'll give everything a coat of matte clear to tone it down. I'll also remove the tape from the windshield after the matte clear has cured. After the backyard dirt sat in the garage overnight, it was dry enough to sift. This will create the perfect texture for ground cover. Now I'll start wiring up the headlights, temporary button, and battery. I'll start with the battery holder. I'll solder one wire to the positive side and one wire to the negative side. A little dip and flux to ensure a clean connection and to help the solder flow. I'll list all components that I'm using in the description below. Most of these were purchased on Amazon.com. A little hot glue to secure the battery holder. Now I'll drill the hole for the temporary button.
So I brought him into the women's bathroom. Told me he was being asked. Can I stay at your place tonight?
Now I'll cut wires that will run from the positive side of the battery to one side of the temporary button. The other side of the button will run to the positive side of the LEDs.
Why?
I can't clean my apartment.
Please excuse the background noise. If you've followed my channel for any time, you'll know that I have to have something playing in the background as I work. It's usually Breaking Bad or House of Cards. Now I'll solder the positive side of the LEDs and the negative side. I'll give it a quick test to ensure that everything is working properly. Now I'll tape up all of the connections and give it one last test. I'll also install the button. Everything is finally coming together. And another test. I really like the way everything is looking so far. Now, I'll mix some of my backyard dirt and some white glue to add the last layer of detail to the body. Here's where you get to be as creative as you want. We want this gladiator to look like it's been through some serious mud holes and rough terrain. Apply the mud anywhere on the body that you'd expect to see it after some serious off-roading. Now, I'll set it aside and let it cure overnight. Tomorrow, we'll add a little greenery and the last layer of detail. So, the idea is, these guys have been doing some off-roading in the desert after a big rainstorm. They've stopped on this rock to take a break. So now, we'll need to add some desert foliage. I'll secure everything with some white glue. I'll mix-match some of the plants to complement the terrain. This is where your inner Bob Ross will come out. You can be as creative as you want. Add as many plants as you want or keep it simple, it's up to you. A lot of these pre-made products that I'm using for foliage can be picked up at your local hobby store. Amazon, Hobby Lobby and Joe and Fabrics is a great source for miniatures and dioramas. Again, be as creative as you want. Sometimes, a little is a lot. Sometimes, a lot isn't enough. It's all up to you. I think it's time to call this one complete. Again, sorry for the long video, but a lot of folks have requested more detail and information about how I do things. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, please consider subscribing to our channel, we do a lot of neat things. Thanks again for watching.